Here and now, the program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Coming up, the impact of delayed diagnosis and service for children of color on the autism spectrum and one family's mission to change that. April is National Autism Awareness Month, and according to the CDC, Black and Hispanic children are subject to delayed evaluation, diagnosis, and services. Our next guests are autism advocates. They have a son who is on the autism spectrum, and they are co-authors of the children's book, Sensationally Super Sandy. Joining us today is Tracy-Ann Samuels, ambassador for Autism Speaks, along with her husband, autism advocate, Jamiyl Samuels. So nice to meet the both of you.
So nice to meet you.
You have quite the partnership going on here.
Yes, we try.
And it sounds like you have a good reason. Talk to me about your son, Trey, a little bit before we delve into some of the projects you're working on. When did you guys realize that Trey was on the autism spectrum? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
I realized at the age of 2 that Trey was exhibiting sign of autism. I am a social worker, and I said to my husband, I think he's exhibiting signs of autism. But you know, we're Caribbean. We come from a Caribbean family, and I just remember my husband saying, "Oh, he's just quiet." And I said, "No, there's something wrong. There's something different in his demeanor. There's just something is off." And we decided, when a child initially gets a diagnosis of autism, for children of color, they're 5 times more likely to be misdiagnosed. Mm-hmm. Trey did not get a diagnosis until the age of 5, and which is delay in services, delay in early intervention, which is crucial services that is needed for a child, especially on ASD.
And we, like I said, I was a quiet child, so we had to go through that period of denial. You don't think anything will be wrong with your child. Pretty much a young child. We put him in school at 2 years old, and we saw that he wasn't interacting with the other kids. Mm-hmm. So we knew something was pretty off. So we asked the teachers in the schools, in the classrooms, and they didn't really give us a straight answer. So it wasn't until he was in pre-kindergarten, in public school, that we put him in public school, that we found out that she suggested that we get him tested because he was walking around the classroom. He was exhibiting weird behaviors in the classroom.
I mean, can I just ask you, there's so many questions that I want to ask you about this, because you guys really are the experts. Just when you were finally able to nail it down, you didn't think you were Caribbean. You thought he was just being quiet like you were as a kid. Once you finally got the diagnosis, just as parents, how did you feel about that? Were you scared going forward?
I was depressed, because as a mother, you tend to blame yourself. And this is why advocacy is important to me, because there's a lot of parents out there who are blaming themselves, who are stuck in the denial and depression state. And you can't be stuck in that stage. You have to, as I tell people when we go out, you have to mourn that child that you thought you were going to have. In order to
love the one that you got.
Right. And he's it's the best thing that has ever happened to us, because we're sitting here today. Mm-hmm. And if you don't mourn that child and don't rise up from your depression state of denial, the child won't be able to get the services that they need. So I was very depressed. I was very upset. I didn't know what to do. I started to research different services. And for me, it was difficult, so I can imagine other families in the community, how hard.
And you were educated. You're a social worker.
Yes, I have a master's degree. So does my husband. And I'm like, if it's difficult for us to find services, I can't imagine other families in low socioeconomic that have to try to find services. It's depressing. It's overwhelming, just navigating the system. But I was able to stumble on Autism Speaks that gave us a 100-day checklist. And that was the life-saving for me.
Because it gave you some direction on where you need to be going. Yes. I want to circle back to something you said early on, because I do think it's important for us to talk a little bit more about it. Why is it that Black kids are being diagnosed, in a more delayed manner than other kids? What's the reason for that?
I think the reason for it is also our community. We don't talk about autism. There's such a stigma, a taboo.
Right.
We know something is wrong. We are not speaking to each other about it. Even with our medical doctor, I would say to my doctor, like, something is wrong, and she would brush it off. They're not getting the diagnosis earlier, and it impacts them.
Yes.
I wish Trey got the diagnosis so he could have received early intervention.
Yes.
And just services. A lot of parents don't know where to start from. I tell parents when I go out there, I said, just rule it out. If your gut is telling you something is wrong, it doesn't take anything to go out and rule it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Jamiyl, let me ask you, why do you, especially now that you guys are, you're in this, you're advocates, you've got a son that you're proud of his progress. Why does that early intervention, why is it so important? What difference would it have made had he been diagnosed at 2 or 3, rather than, you said 5?
Yes. Well, the early intervention is key because when we finally diagnosed him, we were able to get speech therapy, occupational therapy. This was a little boy that was hitting his milestones before the age of 2, right? So when he became 2 and he just went silent, like couldn't speak whole sentences. He would make faces. We didn't know if his stomach was hurting him. We didn't know if he was in pain. We couldn't hear. He wasn't talking. He wasn't saying simple things that we take for granted in everyday life, right? He wasn't making noises. He wasn't telling us anything. So the early intervention is key because it provides speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral services, ABA services that we're giving him now. He's thriving now, but if he got the early intervention, he would have been talking a lot earlier. Now we can't get him to stop speaking, which is what we wanted.
How old is Trey now?
He's 14. Just turned 14.
Oh, he's a teenager.
Exactly.
Yes.
So he's got all those things going on.
Exactly. Which is a headache in itself now. Preparing him for transitional services, transitioning into high school.
Right.
That's another set of services, job training, everything that has to go along with being a kid and going through hormonal changes. And we want to get him to interact more. We're working on his socialization skills, socialization cues, like knowing when someone is making a joke or when someone is being sarcastic, or when, more importantly, when someone is being manipulative or leading him into dangerous situations. He needs to know how to see these.
Because he essentially learns differently.
That's right.
Than other teenagers his age.
Absolutely.
And you have to figure out how to teach him in a way that he gets the same knowledge, he just absorbs it differently.
And that was part of the beauty of this journey, is because we realized that he hears music. Yes. Music is something that he latches onto. Like in early stages, he wasn't speaking, but he was tapping. He was making beats with his hands. We would get calls from the teacher that he's making music. He's distracting the other kids because he's tapping on the table. So once we got him music therapy, we got him to play. He plays multiple instruments: piano, the drums, the guitar, the violin. He's playing songs by ear.
Yes.
So we found we found out that he's good in music, he became a whole nother child. Like he started to thrive even more.
Yes.
Right. So
I mean, in a lot of ways, like any other child, that you find that thing that is your passion.
That's right.
I guess it's even more important with a child like Trey, because that can be the key to opening the doorway to other knowledge for him.
Absolutely.
Yes, because children who are autistic tend to have some kind of gift. I always say they're gifted, and Trey's happens to be musically. I think that really changed his whole trajectory. He's able to just tune in. Once we hound in, he wasn't flapping his fingers no more. He would walk, he would flap. My daughter would constantly ask us, why is he flapping? He was constantly hearing music. And once we tone in, he was able to just tone down, relax, and able to listen and be more attentive in school.
And communicate through the music.
Yes.
He's playing in recitals and everything.
Mm-hmm. I know that you, Jamiyl, you work at Rikers in a youth facility, right?
Yes.
So, and I'm just curious, have you come across other kids there that are perhaps at Rikers and really maybe they're undiagnosed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times I see a couple of the individuals that I work with and say they don't need to be here. They need to be in a mental health facility or getting these services. And that's a shame that, you know, a lot of these kids go undiagnosed, and it's very important to find out what their mental health background is before, you know, we tend to just, as Black people, be thrown in jail or locked up for crimes, and sometimes they can't help,
Mental
you
health
know,
services.
because a lot of the autistic cues are like based on noise sounds, like, you know, people yelling. You know, you have to be careful how you approach a person on the spectrum,
Yeah.
and this is what causes a lot of the erratic behavior that may lead to a criminal, you know, background or
be
locked up.
perceived
Right, being
as
perceived
criminal.
as criminal.
When
Exactly.
they just simply have been misdiagnosed, and no
Right.
one has taken the time to figure out that something's going on.
Right.
And that's
right.
what happens to our children of color.
Get lost in the system.
They
So
get lost.
again, that's a little bit of that institutional racism.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I want to move on because I could talk to you guys all day, and I think that Tracy, my producer, will tell me the clock is ticking. One of the things that you guys have done, you know, obviously taking care of Trey and his sister is your life's work as parents, but you also have established the Amazingly Sensational Kids Book Company. And your latest book, Sensational Super Sandy. Talk to me about why, and these are children's books, right?
Yes, these are children's picture books. The series began with the amazingly awesome Amani. Amani is Trey's middle name, and Sandy is our daughter Asia's middle name. So we started the books because Asia had a lot of questions, as my wife stated earlier, about why Trey is laughing at her. Why is he not speaking to me? You love him more than me. You know, we have to deal with all those with the siblings. You know, so it's very important. Sometimes the sibling gets lost in the conversation when you talk about someone on the spectrum. So we wanted to shine a light with the third book in the series about the sibling and what they're going through. Sandy makes a cameo in the first two books, but, you know, she treats Trey Amani very bad. So this pretty much gives the reason why she treats him so badly, you know. So we find out her situation and why she feels the way she feels, and we wanted to show that the sibling is just as important and instrumental to the development of the child on the spectrum.
And your daughter, is it Asia?
Asia.
Asia.
Yes.
She is, how old is she?
She is 8 going
She's
on
8.
80.
So it's a lot for an 8-year-old to start sorting through. But has she come to understand how her brother learns differently? And
she is understanding much better about Trey's behaviors. She's understanding because we're going out into the community. We have been to her school. We're educating kids about the behaviors that these children, they're awesome. They're amazing. They want to be loved too as well, but they communicate differently. So through Asia being involved in our advocacy, she's learning so much more about her brother's behaviors and mannerisms. And
she's the one, like I said, she pretty much demanded that he speak to her. You know, she wouldn't take no for an answer. So she was instrumental in him being able to communicate along with the speech therapy. Just having that sibling, that person, that physical person in front of you to talk and to communicate with really helped him.
Really. I know that you, Tracy-Ann, you are an ambassador for Autism Speaks.
Yes.
So talk to me about your work with them. And I guess it's a continuation of really the advocacy that your family is doing.
Well, I am a volunteer. I'm a volunteer ambassador for Autism Speak. And basically, I have the privilege to meet with our congressman to speak about issues that are associated with children with disability. This March, we were able to have what is usually every year we have what is called a Hill Day, and we speak to our congressman based on issues, home and community-based services. These are in-home issues, and because of COVID, they were impacted. So it was important that services go back into the home for those children that are nonverbal and are verbal, and their parents also need those supportive services as well.
I'm going to mention, if you could, fill me in on the HCBS Relief Act. Is that what what you've been talking to Congress people about?
Well, we spoke to our Congressman Gregory Meeks and Chuck Schumer. These services are assistive equipment services, in-home services. They also deal with children's transitioning in order for them to be independent. They give them skills that they need to be that are needed in being good and being better parts of the society. They also give them services with regarding PPE. The workers needed protective gears to come into the home. So we were basically asking our congressman that instead of our children being on these long waiting lists, Trey was on a waiting list for almost a year waiting for services because of COVID, that these services are detrimental and needed for our families.
You guys are awesome. You really and truly are. Shining a light on these issues and also letting other families know that there are services out there and that there is a path forward through this. And that they have to be advocates for themselves. Absolutely. If I send folks to the amazinglysensationalkids.com, that website, they can find all of your books there.
Yes, The Amazingly Awesome Amani, The Amazingly Awesome Amani Takes on Jitters and Fear, and the Sensationally Super Sandy books are on that site, and a little more background about what we do.
Okay. Thank you guys for sharing your family story with us today. We really appreciate it. And I suspect this won't be the last time, Tracy-Ann and Jamiyl, that we will be talking with the two of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.